Mark my words, 2025 will go down as one of the most competitive seasons in history for the GTD Pro category. In my opinion, the level of talent in the teams, drivers, and cars can only be rivaled by the glory days of GTLM. And as they head into the tight confines of the Detroit Street Circuit, which encircles the GM Renaissance Center, all 11 cars will be willing to do whatever it takes to claim victory for themselves and their manufacturers. After 3 rounds, AO Racing leads the championship with their back-to-back victories at Sebring and Laguna Seca. Following closely behind is the 3 Corvette, which was on the podium at both Daytona and Laguna Seca. A surprising 3rd place is the 81 Dragon Speed Ferrari, followed closely by the number 65 Ford Mustang, which claimed victory at Daytona. And there is a near 3-way tie for 5th place between the 2 BMWs and the sister number 64 Ford Mustang. Heading into qualifying, Corvette seems to have an advantage over their competitors because they're fastest through the corners, which is critical on a tight street circuit like this. But they're also slowest on the long drag down Jefferson Ave. So, although they are well suited for qualifying, they will struggle to pass other cars in the race. So, qualifying up towards the front of the field is especially crucial for the number 3 and 4 cars. Contrast that with the Mustangs, who are fastest on the long straight, will have the easiest time passing in the race, but are slowest in the corners, and therefore predicted to struggle in this qualifying session. But qualifying does not go as expected, because during their fastest laps, the 3 and 4 Corvettes get caught behind the number 77 Pink Roxy Porsche, and the 81 Ferrari crashes coming out of turn 3 before they have a chance to go for another lap. Their Ford Mustang arch rivals, however, fared much better in qualifying because they were not compromised on their fastest laps and were able to lock out the front row for the Blue Oval. So, with race day upon us, the number 4 Corvette is in 5th position with this number 3 car of Antonio Garcia all the way back in 8th position. And he will need to get his elbows out if he wants to muscle his way up through the field and claim a podium on home soil. The Mustangs, on the other hand, will be hoping to sail off into the distance with carnage ensuing behind them. So, as Antonio Garcia pulls away from the grid, he knows he has the fastest car in the field, but he is going to really struggle to overtake the other cars with his top speed disadvantage. It's not all bad news for this 3 Corvette though, because although they struggled in qualifying, so did their championship rival, number 77 Roxy Porsche, who will be starting just alongside them in 7th position. And as Antonio Garcia makes his way out of turn 1 into turn 2, the field will line up on the back straight as they prepare to take the green flag. As they come to the green flag, Garcia has a huge gap to fill and slams on the throttle, but the green flag hasn't flown yet. Finally, it does. It was a really fast start. Those Mustangs wanted a quick getaway, and Garcia is already past the 77 Porsche as he closes in on his teammate, and the field compresses as they hit the braking zone for the tight turn 3 hairpin. The field goes 2 by 2 through this tight hairpin corner, but we can look to the inside and see that the Roxy Porsche has snuck past both of the Corvettes, now up to 5th position as the 4 Corvette tries to squeeze past and clips its bumper as Antonio Garcia squeezes past the Porsche as well, whose exit was compromised coming out of turn 4. Garcia is able to make it stick around the outside through turn 5, through that slow corner as they're piled up behind traffic, through the 6 and 7 sequence, and out onto the short straight into turn 8. We can see there is debris coming off the cars out front. That's because if we look back at the start, the Mustangs led the field to green with that really fast start as they tried to take advantage of their front row lockout. They go side by side into turn 3, the 64 car on the inside, but around the outside we can see there is a BMW who's trying to make its way past, and the 65 car is hit from behind by the other BMW. That contact caused damage to the rear of this 65 car. So as he made his way through the right-hander and consolidates 2nd position, there is damage on the rear of this Mustang. So, although Ford still holds the first 2 positions, their stranglehold on this race is slightly less strong because of that damage, causing questions about the 65 Mustang. But with 2 cars incurring rear bodywork damage and debris all over the track, the safety car is called to clear up the mess that was caused from that first lap drama. With it just being a quick yellow for them to collect the debris, the field is already ready to go back to green flag racing as they make their way through turn 8. But we can see the number 4 Corvette pulls to the right into the pit lane to fix that bumper damage. So as Garcia makes his way through this right-hander and onto the front straight, he has a big gap in front of him. But if we look behind, the 77 Porsche and 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus are quickly trying to find their way past this 3 Corvette as well and putting pressure on Garcia. And through turn 2, they carry a ton of speed and slam on the throttle as the road falls away on the exit. That is the most important corner on the track because it leads onto the longest straight, which is the best overtaking opportunity into the tight hairpin. They hit the brakes and Hawksworth tries to look up the inside, but Bachler defends the position. Now Hawksworth looks around the outside, but you cannot make an overtake around the outside of a tight corner like that. And Hawksworth falls in line behind Bachler once again, who is a little bit slow through turn 4. You can see the rear end of that Porsche slightly sliding on the exit. Hawksworth is quickly trying to find his way past as they make their way through turn 5 into the 6-7 chicane. I actually really like this chicane. It's a nice little flowing corner. The rear end of the car chatters as they go over that bump, and Hawksworth has a run on the Roxy Porsche. Bachler tries to defend as they head into turn 8, but Hawksworth sends it up the inside and makes contact with the rear of that 77 Porsche, which is sent spinning into the wall. Hawksworth now up into 8th position and chasing down the number 3 Corvette, but the officials did not take a kind view to that contact, and Hawksworth is called into the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty. So he pulls to the right-hand side, and this will be our first view of the unique Detroit pit lane with pit boxes on either side, GTD Pro on one side, GTP on the other side. And with it being such a short pit lane, Hawksworth will not lose much time with this penalty. So he releases the pit lane speed limiter and slides the rear tires, nearly makes contact with the wall in the pit lane exit, and there goes the Roxy Porsche of Klaus Bachler. Hawksworth already back in the fight despite that penalty. And this battle between the 77 and the 14 once again resumes on the exit of turn 2. Bachler hugs the left-hand side of the straight, but if we listen, we can hear Hawksworth backing out of the throttle because there's a yellow flag into turn 3. And if we look at the escape road as he enters the corner, we can see there is the 81 Dragon Speed Ferrari, which made contact with the barrier. Hawksworth had a really good run down the straight on Bachler, who struggles on the exit once again, but just not able to execute the overtake because of that yellow flag. Down into turn 5, Bachler uses all of the road he can and slides the rear of that Porsche once again. Through this challenging chicane, we can see that Porsche is all over the road, and Hawksworth once again has a great run on the 77 car. Bachler tries to defend, and Hawksworth looks around the outside of the Porsche into turn 8 and is not able to complete the move on the outside line, having to fall in line behind the Rexy Porsche once again, which slides coming out of turn 9. Hawksworth looks around the outside once again, but switches, looks up the inside, and makes the move past Bachler for 7th position. A move not only critical for his own race, but also holding critical championship implications with number 3 Corvette. Up ahead, Garcia continues to maintain his 6th position behind the number 9 Pfaff Lamborghini. But some really interesting strategy is about to play out. That's because these GTD Pro cars can do over an hour on a full tank of fuel on these street circuits. And with only an hour and 40 minutes on the clock, and likely a lot of yellow running still to come in this race, teams are going to gamble on a really early pit stop to try to gain track position. So with just under an hour and 26 minutes remaining, this number 65 Mustang crew is going to split strategy with the number 64 car and come in for a really early pit stop, hoping that there is a lot of yellow during this race and they can make it all the way to the end without needing another pit stop. With just 15 minutes of the race complete, this car needs almost no fuel, so this will be an incredibly fast pit stop, and every second during this driver change counts. The crew comes over the wall, fuel goes in, no tires are going on, but the pit stop doesn't look that quick. Christopher Mies hands over to Fred Verviche, but we can look in the background and see that the fueling is already done, but the car has not refired. He's still putting his belts on. Finally, he gets it going with one hand as he still is trying to click his belts in. finally buckled into the car, but we'll see that with pit stops being so critical around this track because they are so short, this will really hurt the 65 crew as Verbies tries to quickly get back up to speed in his Mustang GT3, sailing through turn 2 onto the long Jefferson Ave straight where he can finally tighten his seatbelts. We'll flash ahead 10 minutes, back on board the number 3 Corvette, and the rest of the field still has yet to pit, with this Corvette still tucked up behind this number 9 Lamborghini. That shows you just how aggressive of a strategy it was for that Ford Mustang to pit so early ahead of the competition. But into turn 8, we can see that number 1 BMW off the road, and the number 9 Lamborghini pulls into the pit lane. Pfaff Motorsports laying its cards on the table. With an hour and 14 minutes to go, they can probably just about make it to the end without needing another pit stop as the GTP leader now comes flashing past. This traffic could hold up the 3 Corvette, who needs to pump in fast laps to try to overcut the Lamborghini, which will come out on a full tank of fuel and will be slightly slower than this number 3 Corvette. So, with the Lamborghini about to go back out on track, let's jump on board the 65 Mustang, which pitted much earlier, to see how these two strategies will play out. As the Mustang thunders across the start-finish line, we can see the Lamborghini just exit the pits and is way up ahead of this 65 car, but on a full tank of fuel and with slightly colder tires after sitting in the pit box, this Mustang is on the front foot and will be closing in on the number 9 Pfaff Lamborghini. Back on board the Corvette though, just up ahead is the number 48 Paul Miller BMW, which pulls to the right-hand side and into the pit lane. Once again, the same strategy will play out. Garcia needs to pump in fast laps on his lower fuel and hot tires to try to overcut the rest of the GTD Pro field. We can see him defending into turn 1 as he tries to dissuade the GTPs behind from overtaking this number 3 car. Once again, we will jump back on board the 65 Mustang, who has now caught the number 9 Pfaff Lamborghini as they exit the final corner and blast down the front stretch. We look to the pit lane exit, we can see that there is the BMW. The strategy has not played out for the 65 Mustang, having already lost 2 spots on the pit stop strategy. So that aggressive strategy to pit early has not worked out for the 65 crew. Garcia is still out on track, is now caught in the danger zone. If a caution comes out, he will be stuck out on track, but he pulls to the right-hand side and into pit lane as he already has unbuckled his seatbelt and takes down the window net. This pit stop is so critical for their race. Can the number 3 car execute the overcut and pass the 65, the 9, and the 48? Garcia clambers to get out of the car as quickly as possible as Sims slides in. He quickly buckles his seatbelt, gets the left-hand side and the right-hand side already done up. The door is slammed shut, and he is now waiting on fuel. Finally, it is released, and he is released from the pit box. Now that was a quick stop. As he hustles to get back out on track, his belts are not tightened. As he slides through the exit of the pit lane, we can see a Mustang just heading through turn 1. But that's not the 65. That is the pole-sitting 64 Mustang. This 3 crew has jumped ahead of the 65, the 9, and the 48 during that pit stop sequence by pumping in fast laps on their hot tires and executing an unbelievably fast pit stop. By my calculation, it was a 17-second pit stop for the Ford Mustang and a 15-second pit stop for the Corvette. That is the difference between a net 5th place and a net 2nd place, as the 65 Mustang looks around the outside of the Lamborghini heading down this long straight but is not able to execute the move. He is putting pressure on that number 9 car, trying to use the top speed of this Mustang, but just not able to do so as they follow closely behind the 48 BMW. Through turn 2 and onto this long straight once again, and we can see this Corvette is still behind that now race-leading number 64 Mustang as the prototypes come sweeping past. Historically speaking, the Mustangs have struggled with tire wear, so if this 3 Corvette can put pressure on that 64 car, Rockefeller might just wear out his tires. Into turn 3, the Porsche GTP overtakes that number 64 car, which compromises his exit. The Corvette is now tucked up behind its Detroit rival in front of the home crowd. Mustang versus Corvette for the race lead. This is what the fans showed up for. This is what we were praying for when Ford returned to IMSA racing. These 2 old rivals battling wheel to wheel for victory. Heading into turn 8, Sims pokes his nose up the inside into the mirrors of Mike Rockenfeller, who is not swayed one bit, does not deviate from his line, knows that Sims is not going to try to move as he slides wide on the corner exit, but delicately, smoothly puts the power down into turn 1. We can see the Mustang is once again slightly wide of the apex, but carries really good speed through the corner into the critical turn 2, and Rockefeller sends it through the exit, once again extending his gap on the 3 Corvette as that Mustang pulls away on this long straight, with the GTPs now sweeping their way past. Now, we haven't really talked about it to this point, but those GTPs are faster, obviously, in a straight line, but actually on this bumpy, tight street circuit, they are about the same speed through the braking zones and corners. So it's actually a really interesting dynamic where a lot of times the GTPs are trying to overtake, but actually not able to do so. And the GTDs will actually defend their position because they don't want to get overtaken by a GTP that might actually hold them up through the corners. Into this chicane that I actually really enjoy. They hop on that transition from right to left, really making the dampers work for it. Down the short straight into turn 8 that we actually have seen some overtakes at during this race. And Garcia has a slight issue on the brakes, nearly collecting the 64 Mustang as he narrowly avoids hitting Rockenfeller, but recovers, having only lost a few car lengths as this battle continues. Let's quickly talk about the elephant in the room, the street circuit. I know this is probably not many fans' favorite track, but in my opinion, while yes, I would rather see them at Belle Isle, I think it's awesome to bring the sport to where the fans are, and that's exactly what the manufacturers want. I also love the added variety of new circuits every couple of years as the Mustang looks up the inside of the Lamborghini, who's trying to find its way past the Paul Miller BMW and does so into turn 2. The BMW pushed wide onto the dirty line, and the Mustang gets a better run coming out of the corner, also making its way past the BMW as Vervish tucks into the draft of the number 9 Pfaff Plaid Lamborghini. They go side by side down the back straight underneath the GM Renaissance Center. As they hurtle into turn 3, the Mustang tries to make its way past the Lamborghini, but is clattered from behind by the BMW. Once again, it is BMW on Mustang contact around the streets of Detroit as Vervish is ushered aside into turn 3. The Lamborghini scampering away from these two battling cars. Onto the long straight once again, and the Mustang is tucked into the draft of the BMW, has the run going down the straight, but we can see the yellow flashing light on the right-hand side. The safety car has come out, and we can see that damage on the BMW as well from that contact. This will shake up the race once again with the safety car coming out. So with Sims still in second place, he is working overtime to put temperature into his tires so that he can try to overtake that number 64 Mustang and claim victory for the bow tie under the shadow of their headquarters. With just under 30 minutes left in the race, there are no more strategies to play out. This is all out, gloves off warfare for victory around Detroit. With the field ready to go back to green flag racing once again, Rockenfeller hits the brakes as he heads into turn 8 to build a gap to the GTPs ahead. And Sims is trying to guess exactly when Rockenfeller is going to slam that throttle. Finally, he does so. The racing is back underway, and Rockefeller quickly closes in on the prototypes out front as Sims tries to follow in the tracks of the Mustang just ahead. Rockefeller has done a perfect job on the restart and has built a nice gap to the Corvette as they head into turn 1. It's an awkward entry as they blend over to the right-hand side of the road before nearly clipping the apex wall and coming over this crest into the fast off-camber turn 3. The rear of the Mustang ever so slightly sliding around on the exit. The Corvette has the better run, but we know the Mustang has the legs as they hurtle down this long straight with the Corvette's flat plane crank V8 humming in our ears. Sims slams on the brake as we can see he and Rockefeller take completely different lines into turn 3. Sims nearly tapping the back of that Mustang through the apex and using all of the road on the exit as he hustles it back to the left-hand side. The Mustang once again taking a narrow line on entry, but with the status quo remaining up front, battles are raging behind as the 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus is about to be overtaken by Roxy, with Lauren Heinrich squeezing his way past on a mission to claw his way back up through this GTD Pro field. No love lost between the 77 Porsche, who gives the Vassar Sullivan Lexus a little bit of a taste of their own medicine through turn 5. Just ahead, with only 17 minutes remaining, the Corvette is still continuing to push this Mustang, hoping to find the slightest hint of weakness for Mike Rockenfeller, who is doing a perfect job. We can see that clearly this Corvette is closing in the braking zones and through the apex, but Rockenfeller is able to extend his gap on the corner exits by putting the power down well in this Mustang, and then of course extend it on the long straights as well. Back down Jefferson Ave, and it is status quo, with that Mustang just pulling away from this Corvette. That must be such a helpless feeling for Sims, to see that Mustang right there, the chance of victory right there, but just not able to close in enough to make a move into turn 3. Once again, although things may appear stale for the first two positions, the 14 and the 77 are enraged in an epic duel, and we can see Heinrich actually caught up behind a slow GTP. I actually had to rewind the footage because I thought there was a GTD car in front of them. No, these GTPs are not that fast through the corners, and Heinrich is being held up by this GTP Cadillac up front. That is allowing the 14 of Tielitz to close in to this pink Roxy Porsche. Into turn 1, and Tielitz sends it up the inside. Heinrich leaves space at the apex. Somehow they don't make contact, and Heinrich holds the position, but clearly this 14 car is looking for a way past as Heinrich slides the rear, darts to the left-hand side, and tries to break the toe. We can see this Lexus has good top-end speed though, and closes in on the Porsche 911. Into the braking zone, Tielitz sends it up the inside of the Porsche, making his way past, but he is way too deep, allowing Heinrich to regain the position in that damaged number 4 Corvette of Nicky Katzberg to make his way past as well. We know there is no love lost between the 14 and the 77, but there is even less love lost between the number 4 and the 77 as well. We know in qualifying that they were upset with that 77 Porsche for holding them up on their fastest laps. And going into turn 3, the number 4 Corvette puts pressure on Lauren Heinrich, tries to make his way past through the exit, and they make contact heading into turn 4. This battle between Porsche and Corvette coming to blows. And as we said at the beginning of this video, every single position for the 3 Corvette and for the 77 Porsche are critical for their championship standings. So you know that Katzberg is desperate to get by to help his teammate in the 3 car. But with just under 3 minutes remaining, the Mustang continues to lead just out front of this 3 Corvette. So a home victory for the Blue Oval looks all but certain at this point. But as they head into turn 4, a Cadillac comes squeezing up the inside, and that allows the Corvette to gain a few car lengths. Maybe if the Mustang is held up by the Cadillac through this tight section, the Corvette will have a chance at victory in the GTD Pro category. Through the uphill chicane, the Corvette is within touching distance of the Mustang as Mike Rockenfeller pushes that Mustang to its limit. They slam on the brakes into turn 8, but the Corvette is ushered aside by the number 6 Porsche with a 7 car as well, actually making contact with the front of that Corvette. He did not give him enough room at the apex. GTP on GTD Pro contact with under 2 minutes remaining in this sprint race. Unfortunately, that contact also allowed the Mustang to get away as Sims tries to once again close in, but is unable to do so through these 2 corners. It looks like at this point, it is a sure thing that Mustang will claim victory in the GTD Pro category. But while one Mustang is pulling away out front, another one is closing in from behind as Vervish closes in on the 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus of Tielitz, which is pushed aside by a GTP through turn 8. Vervish looks around the outside through turn 9, but you cannot make a move through there as Tielitz hangs on to 6th position. Vervish eases to the right-hand side as he tries to look for a way past. He pokes his nose up the inside, but Tielitz brakes late and brakes deep into the corner, runs slightly wide on the exit as well, but hangs onto the position as Vervish closes in through turn 3. They are nose to tail on the exit, the Mustang in the draft of that Lexus. We can see the straight line performance of the Mustang as Vervish blows past, with Tielitz trying to suck that Mustang back with the side draft down the long straight. They both brake as late as they possibly can, but it's way too late for the Mustang, who sails way past the corner into the runoff. With one Mustang faltering, the other Mustang continues to lead with 0 minutes left on the clock. And Although he is just out front of this number 3 Corvette, there is just nothing that Sims can do as he watches the 64 of Mike Rockenfeller pull through turn 9 onto the front straight to claim victory for Ford on the streets of Detroit. And I have to say, that 64 crew absolutely deserved the win. They executed from the start of qualifying to the drop of the green flag all the way to the checkered flag. What an awesome performance by that 64 car. But also an incredible performance in the race from the number 3 as well. To go from 8th to 2nd around this tight street circuit is so impressive. But while Sims was coming home in 2nd place, there was more drama for his championship rival in the 77 Roxy Porsche that made contact with the 4 Corvette through turn 3 and then returned the favor while trying to turn around once again. As I said, no love lost between the 4 and the number 77. Now, although Heinrich was able to stay ahead of the 14 and cross the finish line in 4th position, both they and the number 4 were given a 17-second time penalty at the end of the race, which pushed them back to 5th position. So, as the 4th round comes to a close, the 77 car continues to lead the championship, but with the 3 following closely behind and the 64 clawing its way back up to 3rd place just behind. Anyways, if you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching and so much for supporting. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys. I want to give a special shout out to my channel members. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.